My husband was cheating, so I caught the evidence with a hidden camera. Really? So this means a divorce, right? I was dumbfounded and stared at their faces, not understanding what they meant. Unfortunately for you, after finding out you were cheating, I installed surveillance cameras in our house. Now, you're really done. On that day, Mary and Sarah contacted all our relatives and booked a banquet hall, inviting a large crowd. Take a look at this. With Sarah's announcement, a screen was swiftly set up, displaying the rumored camera footage. However, in the next moment, the expressions of all our relatives stiffened, and everyone's eyes turned to Sarah. What's this? Oh, so that's what it was. Seeing the footage, I realized what it actually was. I am Smith Steve, a 52-year-old middle-aged man who has finished raising one daughter. That said, in today's society, it's not easy to retire at this age. I still work every day as part of society, looking forward to my nightly drinks. My main concerns are how tough the commute on the train is getting each year and my family. Yes, right now, I'm really struggling with my relationship with my wife Mary and my daughter Sarah. 8 years ago, when Sarah went to college, the conversations between Mary and me drastically decreased. There had been signs before, but it was around that time that we clearly stopped seeing each other. However, back then, I accepted it as something that couldn't be helped. We've been married for nearly 20 years. Our conversations always centered around Sarah. So, I thought it was only natural that our conversations would cease when Sarah left home. But Mary's outrageous behavior didn't stop there. Day by day, she started coming home less and less. Hey Mary, why didn't you come home yesterday? I was worried since you didn't contact me. It's none of your business where I go or what I do. I'm not a child. Mary has been a stay-at-home wife since we got married. Back when we were newlyweds, she always welcomed me with warm meals and a smile. Of course, I never forced her. She said she enjoyed housework and took it on willingly. Even when the conversations stopped, meals were made in advance and her smile was replaced with notes. I believed her feelings hadn't changed. At that time, I truly believed that. That's why I was genuinely worried and asked Mary. However, it seems her feelings had changed at some point. That's true, but it's been happening a lot lately, and there's no sign you've eaten at home. Where have you been going? Are you saying you want to monitor me? Just because I'm a housewife, I should always be home with a warm meal ready to welcome my husband. Or is it because it's your money? I shouldn't spend a dime. What era do you think we're in? Mary said this with a disgusted look, her eyes cold. It was an expression of pure contempt. Not something you'd expect to be directed at a husband worried about his wife. I was shocked but tried to convince myself she was just in a bad mood. My words might have been harsh, but I never said that. It's just that it makes me worried when you disappear without a word. You'd feel the same if I went on a trip without telling you. I wouldn't feel that way. Maybe I'd think you're cheating, but that's it anyway. I have plans tonight and won't be home. Keep that in mind. Hey, wait a minute. But Mary brushed me aside and left the house, trampling on my feelings. From that day on, our conversations dwindled to almost zero. I usually worked from morning till night on weekdays and slept long hours on weekends to recover from fatigue. If Mary consciously avoided being around when I was home, we inevitably hardly saw each other despite living in the same house. Before we knew it, we had become like strangers living under the same roof. Around that time, Mary's spending habits became extreme. This month is $1,000. Last month was $2,000. Isn't that too much? In our house, Mary managed all the finances. I received a monthly allowance and additional money as needed. This was common among families at the time, and I never questioned it. However, on a whim, I checked our bank book and was shocked. The recent withdrawal history was outrageous. Large sums of money were being withdrawn almost every week. Naturally, I confronted Mary about it. What the hell is this? What are you spending money on? $2,000 isn't a normal expense. Oh, you noticed. How annoying. Does it matter? Of course it matters. It's our money. Here we go again. Just because I'm a housewife, I can't spend money freely. You're just my ATM. So shut up and give me the money. Mary responded with extreme annoyance to my questioning. But I couldn't let it go. Although her monthly spending hasn't exceeded my salary yet, we can't save any money like this. Without savings, our future would be in jeopardy. You can never save too much for retirement. Shut up. You can't be serious. Do you think raising your voice will make women listen? You're really outdated. Don't worry. I'm saving on groceries and living expenses. That's not the point. Hey, I'm not done yet. I have an appointment now. Even housewives need to get out sometimes. My desperate pleas didn't reach Mary at all. Mary kept evading my questions like this. There were times I almost lashed out as she left the house, claiming she had appointments. What held me back was the bond of over 20 years we had shared. I suggested several times that we change how we managed our accounts. But she seemed to want the freedom to spend money at will. Each time, she fiercely refused. You managing the accounts, that's a joke. You just want to control me financially. No, please listen calmly. There's something wrong with how you're handling money now. Why don't you take a break from it? So you can trap me at home. Unbelievable. You're the worst. Her hysterics left me helpless. Sadly, daughters tend to side with their mothers. Sarah, now in college, also started resenting me, siding with Mary. Although, to be honest, we had already started talking less when she became a high schooler. I believe Sarah's move to college was partly due to her complicated feelings as a young girl. Hey, you, what are you doing here? What do you mean, here? I'm just relaxing in our living room. That's what's annoying. Whenever Sarah comes back home, her first words are always such harsh ones directed at me. Her upturned eyes are very similar to Mary's, as you'd expect from mother and daughter. The disdain in those eyes makes me want to sigh, but I hold back and try to converse with Sarah. I can't relax at all when I come back home. Even if you say that, I'm tired from working all day too. Just stop talking, you smell old. Despite her intense dislike for me, Sarah never stopped coming back home. And there's only one reason for that. Mom, can I have some money? Again, you really need to save more. Sorry, but I've been traveling a lot this month. It's always to ask for money. And she asks Mary, not me. At worst, she'd take the money and leave without saying a word to me. Mary, who was lenient with Sarah, would hand over thousands from the household account without consulting me. She's really a handful. Sure, he earns a good salary, but he's not a billionaire. Then make him work more. I know that working overtime means more money. Just keep him locked up at work. Maybe you're right. It's just a hassle when he's home. More overtime wouldn't hurt. Yeah, we get the house to ourselves and more money. It's a win-win. Hearing such conversations made me feel like an outsider in my own home. Sarah is now 26 years old. She got married a few years ago and has her own family. Last year, my granddaughter Nancy was born, and I've become her grandpa. However, Sarah's new house is still close to ours. Unfortunately, her habit of asking for money hasn't changed and has only gotten worse. Hey, we're going on a family trip, so give us some money. A trip? Can't you pay for that yourself? You have a job. What? Are you saying you can't even give money to your lovely daughter and precious granddaughter for a trip? Sarah, unlike Mary, works full-time. She said she does general office work at a small to medium-sized company, which is still a respectable job. She should have a stable income. Yet, Sarah keeps asking me for money. That's not what I'm saying. Sorry, Dad. It's okay, Joseph. His only value is giving money. My son-in-law, Joseph Jones, never scolds Sarah and always smiles at me like that. Apparently, he works as a contract employee, hopping from company to company, so his income isn't very stable. That's partly why Sarah comes to me for money, but the problem is how she uses it. If they were struggling to afford daily necessities and came to me for rice and miso, I'd support them without hesitation. Anyway, the money. Hurry up and withdraw it. Okay. I could clearly feel my failure in raising my child. How did she turn out this way? Maybe if I had been stricter with her during college when I noticed something was off, things might have changed. But then again, maybe nothing would have changed by that point. With Mary secretly spending my money and Sarah coming to me for money like a debt collector, I couldn't stand being with them. I felt like my existence was losing its meaning. Ironically, I ended up working overtime more and more, just as Sarah had suggested. I wanted to be at home as little as possible. That day, I stayed late at work again, because Sarah and Joseph were visiting our house. As I got closer to home, my steps grew heavier. When I finally got home, the first thing I heard was Mary's shrill voice, which made me want to cover my ears. "What were you doing until this late? Cheating, I bet. I can't believe this. I'm divorcing you right now." "What's gotten into you, of course? I was working overtime." "No way. If a husband comes home late, 9 times out of 10, it's because he's cheating. Just wait. I'll catch you in the act." Well, whatever. For some reason, she was furious as she greeted me at the entrance. She seemed convinced I was cheating. But it was too exhausting to argue, so I quickly gave up. Since I wasn't cheating, there would be no evidence to find anyway. If an investigation would satisfy her, she could go ahead. Though the money for the investigation would probably come from my salary. "Were you cheating? You're the worst." "I'm not." "You can say whatever you want. Just admit it and pay Mom a hefty alimony." In the living room, Sarah greeted me with a look of contempt. It seemed Mary had filled her head with lies too. Feeling awful and exhausted from all the overtime, I had no energy left. I escaped to the bathroom and then to my room. What a miserable home. My husband was cheating, so I caught the evidence with a hidden camera. Really? So this means a divorce, right? What? A few days later, they declared this triumphantly, holding a camera. I stared at their faces, not understanding what they meant. "You didn't notice, did you? Too bad. Since I found out you were cheating, I installed surveillance cameras in our house. The evidence of your affair is all here, so get ready. Now you're really done. Hey Mom, why don't we invite all the relatives and publicly humiliate him?" "Great idea. Let's also invite Joseph. Unlike this man, he's part of our family." "Totally." Leaving me out, the two of them excitedly discussed their plans. Knowing I'm innocent, I didn't care what happened. But I was curious about the so-called evidence Mary mentioned. "Hey, what's on that tape?" "Oh, are you curious? But I won't show you. If you saw it, you might try to fake something." "I don't think you're capable of that, but better safe than sorry." In the end, I couldn't see the footage until the day came. On that day, Mary and Sarah contacted all our relatives and booked a banquet hall, inviting a large crowd. The event was nominally to introduce Sarah's daughter, Nancy. Nancy was already 1 year old, but she hadn't been formally introduced yet. The gathered relatives, especially the women, were captivated by Nancy. "I have something to show you all." As the event progressed and most had finished eating, Mary announced with an air of importance. She even used the provided microphone. "Please take a look at this." With Sarah's declaration, a large screen descended on the stage in the banquet hall. The lights were quickly turned off, and the rumored camera footage started playing. The video showed a dark room. The relatives watched, holding their breath, wondering what was happening. "The video is a bit dark, but this is footage of my husband's affair. Shockingly, this man brought a woman into our home and committed adultery. This evidence was bravely collected by my mother. I wanted to believe in my husband, but this is undeniable proof. However, I didn't have the courage to confirm it alone, so I decided to share it with you all. Mary, covering her eyes and pretending to cry, gathered the sympathy of all the relatives. But in the next moment, their expressions stiffened. The reason was clear. And after a brief silence, all eyes turned to Sarah. "What's this?" "Oh, so that's what it was." Seeing the footage, I realized what it was. At the beginning, the video, only showing audio of an affair in the dark, was sped up by Mary, who pretended she couldn't bear to watch. So, there was no sound, just shadows moving in the darkness, until a certain moment when the room was lit up. It seemed someone had opened the curtains, and the person revealed by the light was not me but Sarah's husband, Joseph. "What is this, Joseph? What is going on?" "Wait, wasn't this supposed to be footage of my father-in-law's affair?" "That's what I thought. But this is footage from our guest room. Why is Joseph here?" In utter shock, Sarah grabbed Joseph, demanding an explanation. Joseph, grabbed by Sarah, stammered an explanation. Beside him, Mary watched them with a look of complete confusion. "Our guest room, seriously?" At Mary's words, Joseph's face turned pale. I couldn't help but mutter, barely holding back a laugh. "It seems Joseph knows something about this." "What? Did you know something? Were you setting us up from the beginning?" Sarah, catching those words, redirected all her anger from Joseph to me. She seemed determined to make me the villain. However, I couldn't fulfill that expectation. "No way, you two prepared that footage, right?" "I just knew I hadn't cheated, so I was curious about what the video showed." "Such an obvious lie. Do you think you can corner us with that? You're naive." "That wasn't my intention, but to be honest, I did have a hunch about Joseph's affair." "What?" Sarah froze at those words. The way she glared at me, I could almost hear her thoughts. "How did you know? Why didn't you say anything?" "Isn't it my choice what I do with what I know? Besides, I wasn't certain. I just had a feeling. Didn't you suspect something too?" "Well, no way." Next, it was Joseph who panicked. When he raised his voice, Sarah brazenly spoke up. "Yeah, that's right. Seriously, if you're going to cheat, don't let me find out. Pretending not to notice is not easy." "What?" "But now that it's out, there's no choice, Joseph. It's over. Make sure you pay alimony and child support." Realizing that I wasn't going to lose my composure, Sarah shifted her anger to Joseph. But Joseph's usual smirk disappeared, and he glared, eyebrows raised. "Don't mess with me." "What did you say?" He glared at Sarah with a furious expression. Then he started rummaging through his bag. "I know you've been cheating too." "What?" "Look at this." Joseph pulled out an envelope from a detective agency and another with DNA test results. Apparently, he was so worried about them being seen at home that he carried them with him all the time. Roughly dumping the contents onto the table, Joseph continued excitedly. "This is evidence I've been collecting for almost a year. And these are the DNA test results for Nancy and me. By the way, it clearly says we're not related." "When did you? How long have you suspected me?" "All along. I tolerated it because you had your father and mother wrapped around your finger and used them as atmis. But if you're ready for a fight, so am I." The two of them, oblivious to the gathered relatives, started exposing each other's affairs. The ugliness was unbearable, and I couldn't watch anymore. The worst part was that there were small children among the relatives present. Understanding that this place was about to become even more of a battlefield, I discreetly asked the relatives, especially the young children and women, to leave the room. I couldn't bear to let the young ones see such horrible things. Only the adults and younger husbands remained. Some women stayed out of curiosity, but they all watched Sarah and Joseph's nasty argument with strong disdain. With everyone's eyes on them, the argument between the two escalated further. ATM, what is that? I'm not just a cash cow. How dare you insult me after marrying such a beautiful and generous wife? Generous? Don't make me laugh. You're just a pretty face with a horrible personality. What did you say? You act high and mighty with your 65-point face. Still tightly held by Sarah, Nancy had no choice but to witness the scene. I wondered how I could save that child, who looked increasingly anxious from the shouting. The two of them, so caught up in their own issues that they couldn't care for their precious daughter, were clearly unfit parents. A 65-point face. You loved that 65-point face so much you didn't want to leave, right? Excuse me, what nonsense are you talking about, you loser who can't even make a decent living? You're such an infuriating woman. If that's how you feel, then fine. Let's split up, but I'll take you for every penny you've got. The two seemed ready to start a physical fight. Nancy's face contorted in distress. Realizing this was too much for her, I stepped between them. That's enough. How long are you going to show this ugly fight to our relatives? Have some shame. This is all your fault. What about me? A strong glare made Sarah flinch for a moment. I had never taken a harsh tone with Sarah, as I didn't believe in raising my voice as a form of discipline. But I am still a father. This is part of my role. I then softened my expression as much as possible and crouched down in front of Nancy. Nancy, are you okay, good girl? Susan is in the next room, so can you wait there? Your mom and dad need to have a talk. Although Sarah flinched for a moment, her anger quickly returned. I needed to get Nancy out of this situation before the argument escalated again. While Sarah's attention was on me, I sent Nancy to the next room. Susan is my sister's daughter, and she often looks after Nancy. I escorted Nancy, who nodded despite her fear, to the next room, and then turned back to face Sarah, who was still seething. I've done nothing but protect this family, even though you kept calling me an ATM. Is there a problem with that? How arrogant. It's your suspicious behavior that caused all this. You made Mom worry. You're the worst. Made Mom worry. At Sarah's words, I glanced at Mary. Seeing her shoulders flinch, I sighed dramatically. What? The one who cheats is often the one who suspects their partner, just like Sarah and Joseph. I spoke to Mary, drawing out the suspense. Mary looked at me, fearful of what I might do next. Looks like you were cheating too, just as expected. I spread the evidence I had gathered on the table. Mary's face went pale as she glanced at the photos. The evidence on the table was nearly identical to what Joseph had revealed earlier. Photos, documents, and receipts. But of course, they weren't about Sarah. Mom, is this? Where did you get this? Of course, I hired a professional. Your behavior has been suspicious for a long time. All the evidence pointed to Mary. Photos of her acting friendly with an unfamiliar man. I looked at her with as much coldness as I could muster. Technically, Mary wasn't having an affair. Her relationships with these men were purely financial, but that didn't matter. No, this was just a meal with friends. You're being overly controlling, suspecting me of everything. Friends. These young men who look at least a decade younger. I heard some of your conversations, and it didn't sound like the distance friends keep. Friendships come in all forms. Age doesn't matter. Faced with the evidence, Mary began to make ugly excuses. If she had confessed, I might have considered being lenient, but that was out of the question now. I produced another set of damning photos. That may be true, but do friends go to hotels alone together, like this, so close? I just felt unwell, and the hotel happened to be nearby. A classic excuse, and you might already know. But it's not just this guy. There are multiple others. Despite everything, I kept this relatively civil for the sake of Sarah, who was still present. I thought about leaving Mary with a bit of her pride. But if she continues to deny it this stubbornly, there's no choice. I spread all the evidence I had on the table. Photos of Mary entering and leaving hotels with different men over multiple days, and documents detailing the identities of her companions. Every one of these men had a direct relationship with her. The sheer number of them made me dizzy when I first saw it. This one's 25, this one's 27, and this one is 20. Do you even know how old you are? This has nothing to do with you. How dare you drag these young men into this? They're not unrelated. By the way, I plan to demand alimony from each of them. No, if you do that, these boys will. At the mention of alimony, Mary screamed. But her words sounded empty, mere nonsense. I sighed and laid out the reality. I wasn't asking a large sum from one person, but spreading it out among many, in my mind. That was a compromise. These guys are practically committing a crime. They knew what they were getting into. The worst that can happen is they cut ties with you. No, anything but that. Do you really think you'll keep living the same way after we divorce? You used my money like water without working. You're joking, right? Her reaction surprised me. After everything, she didn't want a divorce. She set everything up to expose my supposed affair. Was her plan to control me with guilt and continue using me as an ATM? The more I thought about it, the less I understood her logic, and it gave me a headache. It's neither a joke nor a lie. It's the natural consequence. Take responsibility for what you've done. Wait, it was just a moment of weakness. You were always busy with work, and I was lonely, so I sought comfort. And now you want forgiveness. That's way too convenient. Our relationship broke down long ago. Stop clinging to me. Since Sarah went to college, I've been constantly abused by Mary and Sarah. I've been insulted and drained of money. It's time for me to be free. I will never forgive you. Whatever you say now is pointless. Reflect on what you've done and live miserably. Why? You love me, don't you? You're just kidding, right? It's no joke. My love for you dried up long ago. I stayed because of the years we spent together. But that's over now. Never show yourself in front of me again. If I had known things would turn out like this, I would have prepared the divorce papers in advance. In hindsight, that would have been wise. I looked at the stunned Mary and Sarah. As Joseph continued to hurl insults at Sarah, I decided to wrap things up. Regrettably, I was involved too. I deeply apologize for this disgrace caused by my family. I will make a formal apology later. We will handle everything, so please forget about today's events. Later, I handed Mary the divorce papers and filed for alimony. Mary resisted, but her excuses were merely pathetic. With the help of a lawyer, I secured very favorable terms for the divorce. As for the division of assets, I received almost everything. This was because Mary had secretly used our shared savings. Mary resisted this too, but my lawyer, an expert in divorce cases, explained everything patiently until she agreed. Meanwhile, Sarah and Joseph's discussions were reportedly going very poorly. Currently, they are embroiled in a messy divorce battle in court. There's much to discuss, like alimony and child support. Rumor has it that neither side is willing to compromise, causing their lawyers great frustration. Court cases are also expensive. Sarah and Mary are living together, slowly paying off their debts. For now, Nancy is with them, but the environment isn't ideal. I hope they resolve things on their own, but if Nancy's well-being is at risk, I might consider taking her in. It's uncertain what will happen. But for now, I'm enjoying my newfound freedom. The house is dark when I come home, just like before the divorce. Eating alone is the same as it was. The difference is that no one is spending my money without permission, and no one complains when I relax at home on weekends. Everything has changed for the better, and I'm satisfied. At work, I've been asked if I consider relocating. I used to decline because I owned a home, but now I might take the opportunity. Starting fresh in a new place without any past entanglements is incredibly appealing to me. I'm still just 52, and I'm ready to embark on a new chapter in my life.